According to sources close to the landmark plot sting, it was Sadiq Ali who had boasted of having connections with the Sudanese embassy and was the middleman to arrange the operation with targeting the UN building. But Sadiq Ibrahim Sadiq Ali would maintain in his defense that he was entrapped, but then cooperated with prosecutors making a plea deal for guilty. The other Sudanese, Tariq al-Hassan, was sentenced to 35 years, while the other three, Farez Khalafallah, Amir Abdelghani, aka Abdu Zayad, and his brother, Fadil Abdelghani, were sentenced to 30 years in prison. Amir Abdelghani was later released in April of 2015 and deported. His brother Fadil Abdelghani was released in July of 2019 and also deported. Mohammed Saleh and the Puerto Rican Victor Alvarez were also sentenced to 35 years, but Alvarez was released on good behavior in July of 2020 during the height of the COVID pandemic. Martawai Mohammed Saeed Saleh pleaded guilty to count 5, bombing conspiracy, and Earl Grant pleaded guilty to count 1, conspiracy to transport explosives. Both were sentenced to 3 years probation. Grant served 4 months before being freed on $250,000 bail. Clement Rodney Hamptonell was sentenced to 35 years of imprisonment and died while in custody in 2014. Ibrahim El-Gabroni was convicted of 10 counts ranging from seditious conspiracy, assault on an officer of the United States, and identification fraud. El-Gabroni was sentenced to 57 years imprisonment and 3 years supervised release. His cousin, El Said Noser, will not only be found guilty in the Landmarks plot case, but will also be recharged and convicted for the murder of Mayar Kahana, and then becomes the only suspect out of these later set of conspirators charged and convicted for being behind the World Trade Center bombing, ultimately serving multiple life sentences. Regarding the case for the assassination attempt on Hosni Mubarak, with Imad Salem also an informant and handler in the plot, Sadiq Ali, Abdu Hagag, and Muhammad Abu Halima would be charged in that planning. But with Sadiq Ali's plea deal in the Landmark plot case, it had additionally absolved him of any charges to target President Mubarak. Sadiq's cooperation with the government's investigation of the plots amounted to him testifying and accusing the Blind Sheikh for ordering the bombings, which got him to only serve an 11-year sentence. He also made a tearful apology strongly denouncing terrorism, saying it was evil and ungodly. After the judge sentenced him in court on October 16, 1999, he was released sometime in 2004. His whereabouts are currently unknown. The charges on Abdu Hagag, who had admitted to being an Egyptian informant, turned state's evidence, pleaded guilty to 1 count, and received only 3 years probation. It's alleged that Abdu also tipped off Egyptian authorities to Mahmoud Abu Halina's fleeing and whereabouts to Egypt. Besides for the Blind Sheikh's open calls for removal of the Egyptian president Hosni Mubarak, Mahmoud's brother, Mohammed Abu Halina, would be the only other conspirator indicated for the assassination plot but never charged, and only got 8 years for also transporting his brother to JFK Airport to flee the country. His whereabouts are also unknown. Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman was convicted of 5 counts including seditious conspiracy, solicitation to murder, and conspiracy to murder Mubarak, and solicitation to attack a military installation, and bombing conspiracy. Rahman was sentenced to life plus 65 years. After 9/11, he was transferred to the FMC Butner facility in North Carolina. He died there February 18, 2017 at the age of 78 due to complications from diabetes and coronary artery disease.
Apprehended soon afterwards, the Blind Sheikh is sentenced to life imprisonment.
And today, a federal jury agreed, finding a Blind Sheikh and 9 other Muslim militants guilty. Tonight, federal officials stepped up security at the nation's airports, a move they linked in part to recent events involving the Mideast. And as NBC's Rahema Ellis reports, there was also a ring of blue around the courthouse in Manhattan today as the jury returned with its verdict.
Police were all over the Manhattan Federal Courthouse as the largest terrorism trial in U.S. history ended after 1 week of deliberations. The jurors, known only by number, found blind Muslim Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman and 9 of his followers guilty of seditious conspiracy to wage a war of urban terrorism to pressure the U.S. to change its Middle East policy. With the Sheikh as the spiritual leader, the terrorist plot included bombing 5 New York landmarks within a 12-square-mile area in the space of 10 minutes. And there was a plot to murder Egypt's president, Hosni Mubarak. One defendant shouted, "God is great," after the jurors had left the courtroom. Prosecutors described the conspiracy as a jihad, a holy war against America, but insisted the government's case was not about religion.
This trial was about crimes, very serious crimes, not about religious beliefs or ethnicity or people from any particular part of the world.
Defense lawyers say they will appeal.
Well, I think the message is here, put a Muslim on trial and they'll convict him.
The government's case was built around secretly recorded tapes and conversations. The prosecution also depended heavily on the testimony of a government informant, Imad Salem, an admitted liar who got $1 million for infiltrating the Sheikh's inner circle.
But well before the sentencings and in the days after the landmark plot arrests, the defense attorneys and even the press were having doubts about Imad Salem's motives and integrity.
And there are more details coming out about the man who reportedly saved New York from being a target for terror. Right now, the FBI is said to be hiding him for his own safety, but some say the man is no angel.
Several published reports identify him as Imad Salem, one-time Egyptian army officer, then occasional interpreter for militant Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman. Now, the FBI's informant on the 8 members of that self-styled Armageddon squad that allegedly planned to blow up or blow away everything from the UN to a U.S. senator. But the lawyer for many of those 8 says Salem was on the take from his FBI handlers from the time he gained the confidence of the Muslim fanatics, and that taking out the Lincoln and Holland tunnels, the UN, and the FBI's New York headquarters did not spring from the brains of the Armageddon squad. Instead, it was allegedly Salem and the FBI itself.
And he struck a deal with them, and I understand the price was $250,000. And the deal was essentially that he would try to incriminate some other Muslim people into a grand conspiracy.
The case so smacks of terrorism taken to an extreme, it makes the World Trade Center pale by comparison. Attorney Kunstler suspects a ploy on the part of the FBI, that informant Imad Salem was really running a kind of sting, a botched mass bombing on the heels of the World Trade, making it virtually impossible to find an unbiased jury in either case out of fear of religious fanaticism. The FBI won't comment.